Welcome to the Signifying Donkey Show, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'd like to discuss the rising crime rate in the United States of America. I did some research this week, and one of the things that I found very interesting was that when Donald Trump was campaigning in 2016, he routinely lied to the American public and told them the murder rate was at an all-time high at that point in time. And this is while Obama was still president, before the people had voted on November 4th, 2016. So when I looked, and I got this information from factcheck.org if you want to verify what I'm saying. So when I looked at what the actual murder rate was that year, it turns out it was a 45-year low during Obama's second term. It hadn't been lower in 45 years. Now, why that's so interesting to me is because the Republican Party normally, that's how they influence independent voters, moderate voters, is with commercials that show crime running rampant, smash and grabs. We're going to see a lot of commercials like that in the next year. But I caution you to, considering who's the leading candidate on the Republican side and considering that he's lied once where this particular issue is concerned, I'd like to caution you to give more thought. One of the things that's interesting is there's a distinction between the murder rate and the crime rate. And I find it fascinating that one of the other things that I discovered when I did research is that if you look at the murder rate in the United States of America and not the crime rate, just the murder rate, which I think, it's worthwhile to look at what do we think is a more serious crime? Murder, people being killed, or larceny, petty theft? Obviously, murder is the crime we should be most concerned with. But what you'll find is if you do the research, the 10 states with the highest murder rate in the United States of America, they're all red states, I believe. And I could be wrong about it. I think one of them may be blue, but we're talking about, if not 10, 9 out of 10 of the 10 states that have the highest murder rate in the United States of America, they're red states. So let's give a little bit more thought to the connection between gun laws and the rise, or lack thereof, and the rise in the murder rate. I think that would be helpful. Now, another thing that I found interesting when I did some more research where this issue was concerned, was that the crime rate in 2014 and the measurement that they use was 362. It was at a 362 level in 2014. In 2018, the crime rate had risen to 369. So that means the crime rate was lower during the Obama administration than it was in the middle of the Trump administration. So again, I'm going to try to say this every time I record an episode. I'm about facts. I'm about factual information. I really try to be about nonpartisan politics. I keep my ear open. I'm open to what the Republicans are saying and what they're talking about. If it makes sense, I'm open to it. And if the Democrats are saying something that makes sense, I'm open to it. But if either party is engaging in foolishness, I'm going to point it out. So I have a theory as to why the crime rate is so high at this point in time. Because I'll acknowledge, in all fairness, I'm not trying to be deceptive here, the crime rate and the murder rate has risen during the Biden administration. And the way I don't watch various news outlets, but I would guess that the way conservative outlets are probably painting the picture is that under the I almost said Obama, under the Biden administration, there's a laissez-faire policy and prosecutors all over the country. They're not charging people with crimes unless it's murder. And I think this is kind of the theme of what I'm hearing normally when I watch various news outlets trying to find out what's being said. So, is Joe soft on crime? Are the Democrats soft on crime? I don't think so. A matter of fact, one of the reasons I hesitated to vote for Joe Biden in 2020 was because he was behind a crime bill that was responsible for locking up more brown people than any other piece of legislation in the last 50 years. So Joe Biden had to do a lot of work, regardless of him being a step slower or his age showing. He had to do a lot of work to convince black folks that he still wasn't trying to lock us up. So that part of his history won't be, there'll be no focus on that during campaign season. Democrats are soft on crime. So I have a theory as to why the crime rate is so high right now. Regardless of what president is in office at this point, I think the two most underpaid professions in our society are police officers, law enforcement, and educators, teachers. So if we want to see an increase in our ranking around the world, if we want to see an increase in our children's scores, where standardized tests are concerned, if we want to see an increase in safety and how our communities are policed, we've got to start devoting more tax dollars to law enforcement and paying teachers more, especially now that we're going to lock teachers up if they dare venture into a topic that the moral majority isn't happy with. So we've got to start paying these professionals more. And I think, we'll see more people want to be teachers. We'll see more people want to be police officers again. One of the things I found out when I did my research this week was the Police Executive Research Forum. So I respect the data that they're coming up with because they're connected to the law enforcement community. Resignations are up 50% in police departments all over the country. Retirements are up 20% over, and this is compared to last year. Hey, if you make a job, if you legislate to a point where no one wants to do a job, such as being a teacher or being a police officer, then crime is going to go up. No one's going to want to go out and arrest people if they feel like, not to mention, now, in terms of accountability, and this is why I try to be supportive of police at this point. When I see a police officer somewhere, I say, hello, officer, how are you doing? I don't look at them mean, mugging, acting like, assume that all police officers are doing their job by the book and treat them with respect. They're being shot at when they do their job. But because of body cams, I'm comfortable with more law enforcement. Bring on, I don't like the guerrilla warfare tactics and having tanks patrol, or not tanks, but SWAT vehicles patrolling, inner city. That's the whole other direction that we can go in. And this is another reason why I think the crime rate is up and why law enforcement hiring, recruitment is a challenge now. And that's this. The introduction of this into our society has now made it to where covering up, if you framing somebody, if you shot somebody you shouldn't have shot as a police officer, between the body cam and somewhere, filming you, it now, so the people who were dirty cops, they don't want to be cops anymore. Cops are getting locked up, they're being prosecuted, they're being convicted. So when Congress decides to finally put a budget together, I say fund the police, fund law enforcement, and then we can get this crime rate down, and let's adjust our policies and our practices where law enforcement is concerned. So someone who's interested in being a police officer will want to take that on as a profession. Let's be more creative, because right now things are going in the wrong direction. And I'm not a defund the police person. I don't like labels and slogans. Let's talk about things and stop playing this slogan game. So that's another episode for you of the Signifying Donkey Show. And I'm going to come back to this with a guest host. And we're going to talk about crime. We're going to talk about inner city crime, crime in the suburbs, red states, blue states. We're going to break this down for about a good 20, 25 minutes. But I just wanted to address it today with some of the data that I've already reviewed and give you my opinion right now. By the way, another episode of the Signifying Donkey Show. Stay tuned. This weekend, my guest host, Tori Vanderberg, is coming through. And we're going to discuss critical race theory and the proliferation of critical race theory in American schools. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Signifying Donkey Show. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber, and I'll see you next time. Take care.